This video is going to talk about rates. And to understand what rates are, the first thing that we have to do is look at what fractions are. So if I have the fraction 3/4, what 3/4 is really talking about is parts and wholes. In this fraction, in a lot of fractions I like to think about pizzas because they're easy to split up and it's a very easy analogy to make. So we have the fraction 3/4. The bottom number, the 4, that tells us how many parts it takes to make a whole. So for this pizza, 4 slices makes a full pizza. So this is like a personal pan pizza. The 3 on the top tells us that we have 3 pieces of pizza in our pizza. So this pizza is not a full pizza, but most of it's there. And that's how we look at fractions. We look at the part on top, and the bottom number, the whole, is what tells us how many parts it takes to make a whole. So if I have 3/4, that's most of the pizza. If I have 3/8, you're going to see that the pieces get smaller, so that 3 is going to mean that you're getting less pizza even though you're getting the same amount of slices. So we have our 8 slices. We still get 3, but you can tell that now there's much less of the pizza there for us to eat. Even though it's still 3, those pieces are much smaller than those pieces. So you see fractions used a lot when you talk about ratios. And like we've discussed before, ratios are a comparison of 2 of the same quantities using division. So, for example, if we take the ratio 7 out of 10 students like country music, that means that out of every 10 students we looked at, 7 of them liked country music. As this number gets bigger, we see that there's going to be more students who are appreciating country music. As it gets smaller, we see that there are more students who are not. So if we talk about 3 out of 10, that would be fewer students. But in a ratio, we're talking about the same units. The 7 and the 10, we're both talking about students. 7 is the number of students who do like country music, and 10 is the number of students who were asked, which means in that 7 out of 10, there were 3 out of 10 students who did not like country music. In a rate is very similar to a ratio, except what a rate does is it compares 2 units with different, 2 quantities with different units. So, for example, right before I made this video, about 7 minutes ago, I took a typing test. And on that typing test, it was a 5-minute test. In that 5 minutes, I typed 350 words. Some of them were big words too. I had to go back and make some changes. I had 95% accuracy, which isn't too bad. This is a rate right here. The top number and the bottom number mean different things. The top number is talking about how many words I typed. The bottom number is talking about how many minutes it took me to type them. So that's what a rate is. But that number is kind of hard to understand. What does it mean to type 350 words in 5 minutes? It's very difficult. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at how many words did I type in 1 minute. We're going to change this 5 minutes to 1 minute. How do we do that? How do we get 5 to 1? When we're changing fractions, we can adjust the fraction and make it look different, but still mean the same thing. Kind of like you change the color of your car, and when you get your car painted, which most people don't do too often, but if you were to get that happen, if you were to make that happen and your car went from blue to hot pink, it doesn't matter what color it is, it's still going to run the same. This fraction is still going to be the same fraction, but it's going to look different. So to go from 5 to 1, we're actually going to be dividing by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. And in a fraction, whatever you do to the top number, you have to do to the bottom. And whatever you do to the bottom number, you have to do to the top. So, because we divided by 5 on the bottom, we have to divide by 5 on the top. So let's take 350 divided by 5. And let's go over here so I don't run myself completely off camera again. 350 divided by 5. 5 doesn't go into 3, but it goes into 35 7 times. So I ended up typing 70 words per minute. So I can type roughly 70 words a minute. And this is a unit rate because the number on the bottom is a 1. And with a unit rate, it makes things easier to understand. So rather than saying that the speed limit is 120 miles per 2 hours, you'd rather say that the speed limit is 60 miles per hour or 60 miles an hour. And that's the same kind of unit rate that people use to look at the speed limit, at least. So what we're going to do is I'm going to set you up with a question right now, and you are going to solve it in the form, and then I'm going to go to a different thing. So if you don't get this problem solved right away, you can come back, check the timestamp right now, look at what time it is, so you can go back to this time in the video if you need to. My timestamp says this is right about 7 minutes. But the first question is, if Anna can download 35 songs in 5 minutes, how many songs does she download per minute? So go ahead, and this is going to be one of the questions that you solve and explain in the form. Okay, next example. If I have a car and my car is going 35 miles an hour, I want to know how many miles is that per minute. So instead of writing 1 hour, I'm going to write 60 minutes. And I want to know how fast is that car going per minute. So I need to get that minute down to 1. So here's what I'm going to do. The first thing I'm going to do is I am going to reduce this fraction, because when you reduce fractions, it makes it easier to deal with and gives you easier numbers. We're changing what the fraction looks like, but we're not changing what it means. I know that 35 and 60 can both be divided by 5. 35 divided by 5 is 7. 60 divided by 5 is 12. So my car is currently going 7 miles every 12 minutes. But we don't want to know how far is it going in 12 minutes. We want to know how far is it going in 1 minute. But this fraction isn't going to simplify anymore. And because this fraction isn't going to simplify anymore, when I divide each of these numbers by 12 to try to get 12 to 1, 12 is going to become 1 minute. And when I do 7 divided by 12, you're going to notice that 12 doesn't go into 7 at all. And we're just left with 7 divided by 12, which looks like this as a fraction. So if a car is going 35 miles in 60 minutes, it's going 7/12 of a mile in 1 minute. So if a number doesn't reduce any more than this, you keep the fraction, and that's what it becomes. So another question for you, and this timestamp is right about 10 minutes, which is perfect 'cause I'm doing these timestamps right on the button. We have someone who is breaking bread to sell at a store. He uses a clear board to write. He uses 9 cups of water for every 12 cups of whole wheat flour. What we want to know is how much water is used per every cup of flour. So that's going to be the second question that is going to be in forms. When you try to solve this, use the slash mark on the keyboard to show your fraction. One more question for you, and this one's going to talk about concert tickets. I would like to believe you're going to think of country concert tickets, but if you're thinking of something else, that'll work too. If we're going to a concert and we're bringing 3 of our friends along, we've spent $96 on 4 tickets. So what we want to know is how much did we spend per ticket? So we've got $96 and 4 tickets. Well, to figure this out, how much was 1 ticket? What we need to do is we need to get this number on the bottom to a 1. And to do this, how do we go from 4 to 1? We're going to divide by 4. So the top number also needs to be divided by 4. So we need to do 96 divided by 4. 4 goes into 9 2 times, so we want to put a 2 up here. 2 times 4 is 8. 9 minus 8 is 1. Bring down the 6 to make it a 16. 4 goes into 16 4 times with no remainder. So we end up with $24 a ticket. All right, it's time to complete the form.